Welcome to episode 23 of Crosstown Cardboard. Whoa, we're already showing a big card with my good buddy Craig at New York City Sports Cards, the math teacher, the soccer coach from on Long Island, now in New York City, and me, Carmine, at Carmine's Cards, originally from Westchester County, New York, but now living in Southern Oregon as a sports and news broadcaster. And today, Craig, we just got a notification that the title of our episode is going to be called Hobby Expansion and Retention. Episode 23, the Jordan year, which if you're watching on the Crosstown Cardboard YouTube, you just showed the Michael Jordan exquisite card that we may be talking about pretty soon here. We're talking about the greatness for number 23 of expanding the hobby and retaining people once they get in the hobby, because we don't want you or anybody to just get into the hobby, lose their shirt, and then leave, or whatever could cause you to leave. Maybe it's not money, or maybe it's just you're not interested enough in the hobby. So we're just going to float a few ideas around, with Fanatics taking over soon, saying they want to expand the hobby by 10 times the number of people, which is a lot to expand, of course. So before we dive into that, Craig, I want to ask you, how are you doing? And what do you think about our topic idea of hobby expansion and retention?
I'm doing so well. I thought you would never ask. I hope you're doing well yourself out there on the West Coast.
Yes.
And when I think about hobby expansion and retention, I think about people over the last couple of years who say, oh, so-and-so got into the hobby over the pandemic and left. I personally can't recall having a conversation with anyone who got in and then left. But even so, you could argue those people were in it for the wrong reasons. But as we hear more and more come out from Fanatics about their expansion and their ideas, which, by the way, credit to Fanatics, because I feel like baseball cards are so back. And I've heard more publicity over Topps baseball cards this year than ever before. So far, whatever they're doing from a marketing standpoint is working. But one tidbit we talked about before the show was Fanatics growing this space, this trading card and collectible space, by 10x. So what is it going to take to reel people in and at the same time keep them there? Now I'm thinking kids, but it's not only kids, right? Adults could enter the hobby for the first time. But in this episode, I think we'll kind of bounce ideas off of each other. What got us into it? What kept us there? And maybe even show some packed pulled cards from our childhood along the way to help aid those ideas.
Love the tease. He's going to take a sip. That was so good. You just want to take a sip of your drink.
My chamomile tea.
You got to keep the voice lubricated for the podcasters who are only getting the audio.
True.
All right, Craig. Well, I was listening to Jeff Wilson, who I had featured in our Burbank Sports Card Show vlog part 2, when I was asking him about a tough decision of selling my Tiger autograph, even though it was for a good price, but I loved the card. And, I guess he's kind of a controversial guy in the hobby just because he's a big name too now. But it was interesting to hear him talk about the Topps Industry Summit that he went to and all the innovative things they're trying to do, like you said, around baseball cards. And then the team that he was talking about on Fanatics, made up of people who really don't have much experience in the card space, as far as Twitter, Facebook, Google, higher up people in those social media and marketing areas, rather than being actually in the sports card space. And that seems like one way they're trying to expand the hobby, is bring in other schools of thought to kind of shake up what has been, mainly centered around sports cards. But now what can we do to create those experiences, that user engagement that isn't quite there right now, I would say, in the sports card arena as much?
The key word you used that really stood out to me was experiences. So when I think about this space, it goes so much beyond just buying a card and keeping it, or buying a card and selling it. How could you create experiences, right? Memorable experiences that kids are going to hold on to forever. And those experiences are what makes this fun. Something memorable, something you get to share with friends or share with family. And, I could think of opening packs as a kid and opening a $3, $4, $5 pack and pulling a card that I'm going to cherish and hold on to. I think we've lost a little bit of that, where opening packs has really gone to like breaking, and looking for that big chase card has really turned more into buying and flipping, which all these things are still so important to the hobby. But how can we bring it back to these roots?
Well, I mean, you've been in it since, I mean, 25 years ago almost now. So you're a big experienced guy as far as going to your LCS. I mean, you still go to your local card shops.
I was there today.
You were there today.
I
There you
was.
go. And so how do you get those experiences to be back to the roots, like when you were pulling cards out of packs and you even ended up on a news story off of it?
Mhm.
But so what's your idea, and especially with your experience at your card club after school with all your high school kids, to make that more accessible, or to, I mean, not that it's a lost art, I mean, a lot of people still open packs, but
Sure.
to reinvigorate that spirit that it seems like was more there during our childhood, I feel like.
So every card you see, big or small, has originated, for the most part. Obviously, there's a little exceptions to the rule here. Originated from packs.
Yeah.
Here's my first card from childhood that I pulled myself. This is a
Okay.
2007 Upper Deck Spectrum Derek Jeter patch autograph.
Wow.
Now, I remember exactly where I was. It was Cardboard Memories in East Northport, New York. I think I purchased 2 or 3 packs. They couldn't be more than $5, $6 a piece out of a $75 box. Now, obviously, we're inflation, things have changed a little bit, but where
Yeah.
are those days that when you could pull game worn patches, autographs of
Yeah.
superstars, and it can cost you less than $20, $30 to do so? I just
Yeah.
feel like those days are lost a little bit. So now the only way to get these types of cards are buying them individually. But if you're a young kid and you're a huge Yankees fan, how cool would that be to open up a pack and get an Aaron Judge patch auto, which still happens,
Yeah.
but I just feel like that's almost a lost art in a little bit.
Yeah. So one of your qualms, or one of your things that perturbs you a little bit from the current sports card scene, is the price of the packs or price of the boxes. And I'm just trying to gather from what you're saying. And also, as we always like to talk about, not as many game used products.
So giving kids the opportunity and the chance to pull a card that they really, really like, and cards that can compete really with these big time dealers. I think nowadays you go into these showcases and you see these big cards, right? These big autographs, these patches, these low number cards, and you think, wow, there's no chance of me getting that. Even think of who's someone the kids really like these days. LaMelo Ball, a Prism Gold. That card for a kid seems so unattainable because a
Mm.
Prism box costs $1,100.
Oh, is it
Or,
really that much?
yeah, I just saw that. Like, actually, it
Oh,
might have been no Evan Mobley's rookie year Prism. So 2021, I think. I might be off by a year there. Costs like $1,100. So what are you saying that a kid can't pull a card that big because of that price point? So how could we make wax a little more attainable, but attain not just these cheap products? That's here's a $50 rip. You're probably not going to get anything, but designing these products where you can still get big chase cards, get game worn, chunky patch cards. Back to when we grew up, back to the stuff that we liked collecting.
so your main thing there is just the pricing. I mean, I to be honest, I was shocked at the prices of these boxes and packs too, because I went into Hoodies Collectibles up in Bend,
Mm.
and a great store. I actually saw the owner Tate at the Burbank card show also, and he bought a Clyde Drexler Epic Signatures auto off of me, which of course, being in Oregon and the Portland area, made sense for him. But anyway, I went into the store, and that's where I got my Michael Jordan by the letter autograph.
I
I was
remember.
looking, I was looking around, and nothing against Hoodies. I'm sure it's market price and what the boxes and packs are going for these days. But I was like, wow, there are like only a couple lower end products that you can get for like less than $15 a pack. And I was like, because I don't buy packs, I don't buy boxes, I just buy singles, and I buy the cards that I like. But I was just blown away. So is that like when you
Yeah.
talk to kids in your card club and they're getting more into the hobby, these high school age kids, maybe they have a job, maybe they are trying to get some money up. Are they complaining to you about like they can't afford cards, or what's that situation like?
So I actually had a card club meeting today, which went well. And all the kids that collect cards, they only know cards for the most part through me, through these singles that they're finding through the hobby donations. But I do have one student who's an alumni who has been coming to my classroom every week or two because he found that I'm a card collector. He found that I have all these donations. So he has been sorting through, finding these gems. He's a big baseball fan and he has a big collection already. And I asked him and I said, you brought in all these cards. Like, where are you getting these from? He said, well, I open a lot of boxes and packs. And all the boxes he's opening are Topps Series 1 from the MLB store, which is cool. And he actually showed me a lot of pretty cool stuff. But it seems like the amount he's opening and I guess the amount he's spending on these packs versus what he's getting, and I understand that it is a gamble. It's a losing proposition, and there should be that opportunity to get that big, huge pull. And I don't know if it has to do with print run or whatnot, but I remember the days of opening Top Series 1 baseball where you would get a gold parallel like every other pack. Now they're falling 1 or 2 per box. So obviously you need to up the supply to meet the demands, but I don't know. Going back to the products that we grew up on, where there are a couple autographs in every boxes, there are a couple game used patches in every boxes, dual patches. I hope Fanatics looks back at those mid 2000s products. Maybe they'll buy up more licenses along with just Topps and try to recreate that magic from like the 90s, the 2000s, and while also thinking about things progress.
Yeah.
There's always an adaptation in any industry.
So I think we're both on the same page here that we would love to see more game used stuff. The player worn, I'm starting to get a little bit softer on as far as like being more okay with it, just because we're getting hammered with, not affiliated material with any game, and then player worn, and then fewer and fewer game worn. But I don't know, like let's say if I pull up this Bill Russell exquisite,
Love that.
Game worn patch. Well, it's jerseys, but I think it's actually his warm up because it's wool material. Somebody on Instagram, numbered out of 25, exquisite Bill Russell. So like, you cannot beat that. Like this DeMar DeRozan full letter of the R on the Raptors, or DeRozan, I guess it could also be. Numbered 1 out of 25, flawless game used chunky patch. Like, I hope that Fanatics, when they take over, they get back more to those. I mean, I know Panini, like in the higher end brand, like Flawless, has some of that stuff, but like you said, I mean, what does a Flawless box go? Or I mean, that's like almost 5 figures, I think, it's at least several thousand. I'm not sure because I don't really buy boxes, but so you would like to see more affordable packs, or at least, trending in that direction, you're saying?
Yeah, give people with a lower budget a better chance to pull a big card or something cool like that, DeMar DeRozan, for example.
Okay, so cooler inserts in the lower level products.
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
And then going back to what we were talking about with experiences. Now, I didn't go to the Philly show. I don't know if you were watching content or following along, but something that really stood out was not only the fact that Michael Rubin was there, which, good on him.
I saw that, yeah.
Immersing himself into the scene and like asking questions, talking to people, because what better way to know what the hobby wants and what it's all about than to just be in it. But I love how he brought a bunch of the 76ers with him. Tyrese Maxey, Georges Niang was there. Tobias Harris was there. Shout out to the homie.
Yes.
And they were interacting with kids and young collectors. And I talk about experiences. The days, and we've discussed this on here, the days of the card shows just being like the same old thing, a dusty room, the same vendors, no windows, that can't be sustainable forever. So even something like the Philly show where you're bringing in the local athletes, that is going to grow the hobby tremendously, because now you got kids not only there who, I really enjoyed meeting Tyrese Maxey. He was super friendly. Wouldn't that make you want to now go buy a Tyrese Maxey card? And that opens your door up to all the various cards that are out there. So creating those experience around cards, Adjacent to cards are ways
Right.
that you could bring people in and keep them.
Right. And I know you've talked about Michael Rubin before, and he's the CEO of Fanatics, right? Okay, so I was pretty sure. Okay, so you've talked about him before, Craig, and I'm just interested. It seems like you're a pretty big fan of what he's doing. So what do you like that he? I mean, you just mentioned one thing, but what else do you like about what he's bringing to the table to usher cards forward into
Mm.
this new regime? And it seems like modernize cards, in a way that, like you said, not so much the dusty or the stereotypical card show or card store type of
Yeah.
feel.
I mean, we on this show, we talk about diversity, right? You go to a card show, and for the most part, at least maybe this is like in the past, a bunch of white males at the tables, right? More or less. Now we see
Yeah.
that changing over time. Now Michael Rubin has done work in the community, especially with prison reform. And I think the position was a marketing position, I want to say, for Fanatics. He hired a black male to lead that position. So more inclusion, more diversity, which is something that we talk about. You're going to
Yeah.
bring people of color into the hobby if you see those who are higher up are the leaders of this hobby or the ones making the decisions.
Yeah.
So it's his head's in the right place, and it's decisions like that that makes me think like the hobby's in the right direction.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good news. That's good to hear. And so you were talking about the price of packs before, and I remember going, since we're kind of taking a trip down memory lane as far as how did we get into cards and what were some of our experiences that made it special, and how can those experiences also continue to expand and retain people in the hobby. I wanted to touch on when I was a kid and I was getting into it. Oh, geez, 20 years ago now. And I remember going to my local CVS all the time, and packs were, oh geez, $2 back then, for Tops basketball or Upper Deck basketball, which is even with inflation nowadays, I feel like was definitely cheaper back then. I don't think there's any question that the prices were more affordable, even taking into account inflation. But anyway, the biggest card I ever pulled, I remember standing in front of the Food Emporium in Ossining, New York, which is our local grocery store. And I couldn't believe I pulled this card, this Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant dual game worn jersey card from the East and West. If you remember the Upper Deck series they came out with back in 2003, with the red was the East and blue was the West, which is kind of like me and you now, Craig. We're the Jordan and Kobe,
Coast to coast.
with you on the East and me on the West Coast. So I guess that would make me Kobe, which I'm totally fine with, even though this is our Jordan episode. But I just remember how awesome that was to feel that. And I remember holding on to it, not wanting to mess it up. And I had to go meet my mom in the grocery store. I'm like, I can't carry any bags because I got this card here. And I think now it's, I don't know, maybe a $400 card. But I almost included it in a trade. And I think I mentioned it on our podcast. I almost included it in a trade one time. And then I asked myself the question I try to ask myself each time in the heat and the excitement of a trade. How am I going to feel if I part with this card? And I knew my heart was going to sink, my stomach was going to drop, and I was going to be very upset if I traded it for the value, because it holds much more of a nostalgic value for me from the experience that we're talking about, hoping to create in the future with Fanatics and have other kids or even adults have that same experience. So I was pretty juiced pulling that, and I've never forgotten that feeling of like winning the lottery, but in something tangible where you're like, oh, this is so awesome.
Yeah, and I think when you hold on to a card long enough, this is just my own opinion. There hits that point where you're like, I mean, I can't get rid of this now.
Right.
Like if I've had this card for 10 years, I've held on to it
Yeah.
for this long.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully I'm never in a financial dire situation that I have to sell it. So
Yeah.
assuming that I know where my next paycheck is coming from, once you have that card for 10 years, like it's there to stay. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lose it. So here's another example, similar to you. I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting on the piano chair in my house, opening a box of 2008 Leaf Limited with my dad, searching for Matt Ryan rookie cards, but instead we pulled a Jim Brown game
Oh,
worn I've probably showed this one
Wow.
on here before, but
Yes.
autograph, game worn, sticker auto, but that's okay. BGS 8.5 with 10. I graded it a couple years ago, but I pulled it like 15 years ago with my dad. We
Wow.
were opening boxes together. Now, it's not the same experience if we go to the show and we buy this card together versus we pulled it from a pack. Because
That's
my dad
true.
and I are the only ones, that were able to pull this card. And this, I mean, we bought a box, but the box was probably $100 or less. How many
Yeah.
boxes nowadays for $100 can you pull a Jim Brown autograph card out of?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. That now, see, now it comes, you really hammered home the point. Classic teacher with an example that really drives home the point. Because yeah, I was trying to think, okay, different products, of course, different autos, different patches and on-card auto versus, but like you said, yeah, I mean, in the lower level products, it doesn't seem like you can, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but you can't really get great cards like that as frequently for the price of what you could get back then. So I'm curious now, Craig, because you do both. You buy singles, you buy packs, and I'm wondering if somebody's trying to get into the hobby. Let's say we have somebody who just is coming across our YouTube and they see Crosstown Cardboard and they click on it. And would you recommend somebody going more in singles or more in breaks or more in packs and box buying? Like, which of those three avenues do you think would be more likely to either expand the hobby or retain somebody who's getting started in it?
Opening packs is like the essence of the cards and the thrill of the chase and the mystery. And yeah, I guess you could say a little bit of gambling too. But right
Yeah.
now, in present time, the current landscape of the hobby, if people are coming in for the first time, my advice to them would be buy singles and buy the players that you like. Buy the cards that look cool. Buy the cards that are a little more rare. If you could find a game worn piece, do that as well. Back in the day, I might not have the same answer. Now, of course, when I was collecting as a kid, there were people chasing singles, but me personally, boxes were more affordable relatively. Now, I feel a little spoiled saying that because not everyone was able to afford those boxes. But just in my own circumstances, if you look at the box prices then versus now, you could build a solid collection based off of buying hobby boxes and having fun doing it. And you weren't breaking the bank if you were getting the right products.
Okay. So can you expand a little bit more? Like, why do you think singles is a better way to go these days?
I just think there's a lot of fluff in these hobby boxes. Prism. Everyone likes Prism. I get it. It's shiny. So maybe you can't afford a Prism hobby box. Listen, I'm a simp too for these gold cards, so I totally get it. Maybe you can't afford a Prism hobby box, so you settle for this Prism fast break. Okay. Who's getting jazzed up over a blue bubbles parallel numbered out of 185?
Blue bubbles.
That's that's a parallel
Nice.
in that's actually a parallel in a
Is it a
soccer product.
is it a real one? Okay.
In soccer. There's blue bubbles, gold bubbles. But the point being,
Okay, nice.
there's just so much fluff.
Yeah.
It's stuff that I don't think has as much staying power long term.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm getting at. It comes down to this is my own personal opinion. I just think the quality of today's products is not what it used to be. But there's still so much cool stuff out there that you could buy of your favorite teams and your favorite players. And if you're entering the hobby for the first time, I wouldn't say go on blowoutcards.com, free pub, and buy a box. I would say go to a show and just dig through boxes and see what looks cool.
Yeah. Well, how about like this also struck me as far as like the experience part of expanding and retaining people in the hobby and some ideas. Let's say, I mean, because we always love to give somebody who's listening value to then take away, or just something to consider that they can then take away, apply to their own collecting journey or their lives. So like if you're trying to get a buddy into the hobby, what better way than bringing someone that care about, one of your friends, siblings, or this would be actually great for like a brother-in-law bonding moment, to bring them to a card show and like you have a chance to talk about sports, talk to other people, meet new people, and then look at the cards and be like, wow, that's cool. That I remember that history and stuff like that. I mean, it seems like going to a card show and not just looking at the cards online, which is it's great. I mean, we both love scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and
A
looking
little
at the
too much.
story sales. Yeah, a little too much sometimes.
Guilty.
And yeah, so we do that, but especially if you're going in, that doesn't have the same warmth, the same feeling of bonding with somebody over the cards. If you go to a card show, walk around, and then if you have somebody to join in the hobby with you, like if you have a wolf pack, or even if you just have somebody else like me and you, and we can come together. Let's say we go play basketball or we're watching TV or whatever, and now we have a shared interest in our sports cards just because of the leap that you took to invite one of your friends to a sports card show. And now all of a sudden you open up that conversation canal to begin talking about this and have that open discussion because now you have a shared interest. So I feel like, just off the top of my head, if you're thinking, oh, sports cards, I don't know if I'll be accepted. It's a little bit nerdy. I don't know if this guy wants to go, hey, take a leap of faith,
Totally.
try to invite somebody out to a card show if you have one in your area. I feel like that would be a great way to expand not only that person's hobby experience, but also retain you because you have somebody to enjoy it with.
Yeah, and I keep going back to experiences. What's going to get people in the hobby? There's various ways to do it. Bring someone to a card show. Maybe they just hear about it and they want to buy a card of their favorite player. But as far as keeping people in, it's experiences. So I'll give you another example. Have you ever
Sure.
gotten one of those repack products like the Boombox? We're just throwing out free publicity on this episode today. But
I
Boombox
never
is
have.
like. But do you understand the premise? There's different levels, like $90, $150, $200, and you get a random assortment of packs for your um,
Okay.
favorite sport.
Okay.
So a couple Thanksgivings ago, me, my brother-in-law, and my mother-in-law, we got one of those and we opened packs together. And my mother-in-law, who really like doesn't know the sport of football well, was having such an amazing time opening the packs and just reading the names and looking at the colors. And that was a memorable moment for me. There was
Yeah,
another
that's
one
awesome.
where she bought a pack of select football from Target and we went on FaceTime and she was opening the packs. I think I have it
Wow.
posted on my Instagram somewhere. Those are memorable moments because I'm sharing time with family
Right.
members who don't necessarily know cards, but just opening packs and bonding over that experience. Now, every time I'm with my mother-in-law, like she's here in New York this weekend, she's like, "Oh, we got to go to the store. We got to get cards." So it was those two really fun experiences we had opening packs together at an affordable price because we weren't buying an expensive hobby box. Um, Made her want more. So my mother-in-law was able to scratch that itch and she needs more. Imagine kids who get to open a packs and have some fun and maybe pull something cool or go to a good show. So we got to create experiences somehow.
Yeah. Wow. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was tearing up a little bit when you said that about the mother-in-law, because I'm just thinking, like, what do people want? Like, you think about, I know this is getting a little philosophical, but what do people want in their experiences? Connection with others a lot of times is the biggest thing. So like, your mom or your mother-in-law probably, I'm sure she's interested in football a little bit, but what does she care about much more than the football is sharing that moment with her son-in-law. Now she has something that you guys can both share, which a lot of times that's tough, especially for in-laws or family members who might know each other a little bit. So what do? You get coffee, but now you have something, or you could get cards and coffee.
Shout out Cars and Coffee, New York City.
Yes.
Number one
But
LCS in the area.
now you have something where you can enjoy an experience together in a shared way, and it just becomes something to talk about and enjoy and have smiles and joke around. And that's so great. That's really nice that you guys can share that. So what are some of our biggest points, Craig, so far about expanding and retaining people in the hobby? Is hoping that the prices come down a little bit, or that Fanatics can create. And I heard again on Jeff Wilson's kind of summation of the Tops Industry Summit, and he's saying that they want to put more hits in each product, or like have at least a chase hit that you really want to go after, even in the lower end products, which seems like a a good idea, because if you have something to go after more so, you'll be more excited to buy that product. More game used stuff and maybe some more experiences. Like I heard also at the industry summit, they had for Tops, they were talking about you can pull one baseball card and have like one of the superstars that is on that card follow you on Instagram as
Yeah.
like a
Okay. I like
reward
that.
for pulling that card.
Creating experiences.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I
Very
mean, I
cool. I
don't
like that.
know. I don't know if you'll become best friends with Juan Soto if he follows you on the gram, but at least that would be something like, oh shoot, that's kind of cool.
It'll
Or
put a smile. If nothing else, it'll put a smile on your face.
yeah, or like be a ball boy at the NBA All-Star game,
Yeah.
or Jeff had a cool suggestion of have you be in the outfield for the home run derby, or unique experiences that you can't get other than if you get lucky in a card thing or like a sweepstakes kind of a card deal that might attract people. And then another cool thing with like Full Swing on Netflix, the golf series, which I gobbled up in about a few days, making, especially for the MLB, making those athletes more human, telling their human stories. Like Tony Finau is on there for the golf series Full Swing on Netflix, and he's talking about he has like 7-8 kids. I'm like, I love Tony Finau now. All of a sudden, never knew what his life was like before he was humanized in this series, which the NBA has done such a great job, and their athletes are more open with their personalities and they share a lot more. So, like creating, especially since Fanatics has ownership stakes, with these sports franchises, and so they're in bed together. Hopefully that chemistry evolves where, well, now we have a vested interest in doing business together. Money talks. So now let's figure out how to grow this card hobby a little bit more.
Every card show in a given city, you got to make it an effort. And I don't hire guests. I have no idea how this works, but you got to make an effort to try to get at least a few athletes from that hometown. Like the Dallas Card Show, can we get a couple guys from the Cowboys there? Can we get a Maverick at the show? And then, hey, maybe the athletes themselves start to see the cards, and you see more guys like Mike Trout collects cards,
Yeah.
Antoine Griezmann collects cards. Well, now you put an athlete into this environment, it's all of a sudden like, huh, this is interesting. Oh, wait a second, Michael Rubin is at the head of this. I can get involved with this. Now the wheels are starting to turn.
Yeah. So I wanted to also bring up something that somebody brought up to me on Instagram, which, by the way, huge thanks to everybody who's been tuning in for the recent vlogs at the card shows that Craig had and that I also put out, and that stuck around for our podcast, because we've noticed a dramatic increase in our podcast views and listens on every podcast streaming platform, going from like 100, 150 to now the last ones have been 700, 300, 400. So just a huge thanks. And we've gotten a great response on Instagram to people reaching out and even asking for advice. I'm like, wow, you think highly enough to ask me for advice? I'm like, first of all, I thank the person, which I was going back and I'm like, I'm thanking the person for asking me a question. But then I'm like, because they thought enough of us to, after listening to us, to trust us to answer. So just a big thanks and a huge gratitude to everybody who's taken the time to share this card journey with us and continue to expand the hobby. But I got one question, Craig, which was from somebody on Instagram, and they said, what do you think about how the short print or the serial number cards in Modern is affecting people wanting to stay in the hobby, because there's so many overprinted cards, like a LaMelo Ball base rookie or Zion or these guys where it's just, the cards are so low in value now because there's so many out there. Do you like the Modern short prints, or like you said, there's a lot of fluff in the current products with the blue bubbles and that kind of stuff.
Bronze, disco.
Yeah.
What's going to stand the test of time? I think the ones that have been around for a while. Gold refractors. You could hate or love gold refractors, but gold refractors have been around since the 90s. I think there was a gold refractor, late 90s products. Could be wrong there. And it looks good, right? It looks good. So what's going to stand the test of time? But you said you talked about even just like the base cards. Some kids just want a LaMelo PSA 9, PSA 10 because they like that player and they just want that. And for
Yeah,
a new collector, that's a starting point. Then they'll work their way to the short print parallels. But if you're looking at it from like a value investment standpoint, think
right.
about the parallels that are low numbered that you've seen for a while, like Shy Wave Logs. He's a friend of mine from New York. He has this obsession with red refractors, but I totally get it because they're numbered out of 5 or 10. And red refractors have been around since I remember mid 2000s, like baseball tops chrome products. So it's clearly stood the test of time. I associate that with short print. Again, it's just the fluff, not for me. So for the new collector, stick to the base, and
Yeah.
learn more about the different colored parallels.
And there's nothing wrong if you enjoy getting that base card, but it's just a matter of trying to navigate, like we talked about in our Mount Rushmore of what you look for in a card, figuring that out. And then if you stick to that, or if you decide to deviate from that, just whatever is going to keep fueling your card fire. Like, for example, we've been bringing up the LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of space on this episode.
Yes, he has, which is funny because unfortunately he's out for the season.
Yeah.
But I picked up this Prism Variation Fast Break rookie of LaMelo Ball, which has the photo variation
Nice.
different than the regular PSA 10. And I just looked up the pop. It's a 272, which is not really like low pop on its face, but for a modern card, it's kind of low pop, these days. I mean, if you look at his base rookie, which I'll look up while, we're talking here, it's way higher pop. So how can you create that rarity and interest that might help you, with your card values and might then help you stay in the hobby and get more of this rarity that we might have seen more of back in the day? Well, first of all, the great grade, of course. And then if you get like a photo variation, and then if you get a design variation, like the disco and the photo variation, all of a sudden that's 2 more levels of rarity in the card. And with the grade, now all of a sudden we're in a much lower pop. So that might be a way to kind of skirt your way around. Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at the last raw sales of a LaMelo Ball Prism rookie. Last raw sold according to Card Ladder, $3.
Just not yours, just a regular old base.
Regular base raw. $3. That's the hit that you're going for in a Prism box. I mean, as far as a base card, the PSA 10 is a pop 3091.
Jeez.
So I cut the pop down of my disco variation by more than 10 times that because of the couple layers of rarity. So that might be a way to kind of cheat the system as far as if you're looking at a base LaMelo Ball Prism that goes for $60 last sold with a pop 3091 and a PSA 10. That might be a way, because I'm trying to figure out ways with the modern collector to still have that special experience where you feel like I have a cool card here, but if 3,100 other people have this card, it's not really that cool anymore,
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for the alley oop in talking about 2 cool cards. Because I'm a Mets fan, and I don't have any cards of the modern day players. But I was just talking to cousin Oz yesterday.
Okay,
Shout out to the cousins. We did a little Wolfpack 1-on-1, and we were talking about our favorite teams. I'm like, I don't have any Mets cards. So the store up the street from me, I remember seeing this card, and I couldn't remember what price they put on it, but I remember the card. So I knew I was going to go back into the store, which gave me like a whole week to do a little research on the card, find out more about it. Well, I ended up getting it today, and it is a Pete Alonso.
Oh, nice.
2019 tops, and this is the Independence Day variation, which I had never heard of before. But when did we gain our independence?
What year? Is it a year or a day?
Yeah, dude, come on. What year did we gain our independence?
I'm pretty sure if I look at my calendar, it was the 4th of July.
Year.
1776.
There you go. Which, by the way, being alive during 1776 when we gained our independence must have been lit. But anyway, this card This card is numbered out of 76.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Very
that's
cool.
cool. Okay. See, I like that. I like that idea.
And the background is kind of red and it's stars, and I think it's one every like 140 hobby packs. So I'm like, huh, this is different. I had never even heard of this.
That's
And
cool.
so I
And it's
came
in a
across it.
BGS 9.5. It's in a
BGS
great grade
95.
also.
It's New York Met. It's his true rookie. It's not that tops update Fugazi rookie we got. This is the real deal Holyfield right here.
Nice.
So yeah, pretty excited to have this one.
That's
Um,
cool. You
I'm
know,
I'm learning something new every week too. I didn't know this was a parallel because I don't really do baseball cards, but now being a lifelong Mets fan, I got a little extra rooted interest in the team this year.
that's awesome. So the lesson there from the LaMelo and the Pete Alonso, you can still find, if you're smart and you pick your spots, you can still find some of that rarity, some of that coolness, some of that uniqueness and lower pop if you search for the cool variations or the different cards that are out there, because they still are out there. What's that? Oh, Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow, 2019 Bowman draft again with the Mets, numbered out of 5.
Dude, nice. Numbered out of 5. That's
Numbered
cool.
out of 5. Yeah. So something I picked up at another. Oh my God!
I'm
Look
sorry.
at
I have to bring up my Tim Tebow, the Leaf game used patch.
cross town the Tebow guys. Yeah,
One of one.
I'm a big Mets fan. I picked this up in a trade from Cards and Coffee. I've put some feelers out there for selling it, but it's one of those unique cards that there's a story to be told for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had no intention of getting something like this. It came across my radar, and I said, "Boom, that's the one."
Another good way to retain and expand people in the hobby is the story behind the card. Like, you really enjoy those 2 Mets cards because there's a story behind them. Tebow was a moment in sports history, overcoming all that adversity. People are telling him, oh, stick to football. What is this guy? He's ruining the integrity of our American pastime. Meanwhile, this guy is just chasing his dream. He's just trying his best. He's just trying his best, to do something else. And you have a card from your favorite team numbered out of 5, and then you have the 1776 Pete Alonso in a BGS 9.5. That's another cool element. So, like, thinking about the stories that are going to get you excited, get you nostalgic, I feel like is another good way. And we're just talking about, our own journey could totally be different for somebody else. So, Craig, real quick before we wrap up, what do you think about breaking or breakers, buying into those breaks, and putting your money out there for a potential huge reward, but a lot of times doesn't turn out well if you go in on the Hornets and you hope to get something out of immaculate box that's LaMelo Ball, since he's the theme of our episode apparently. What's your stance on how breaking factors into that hobby expansion and retention that we've been talking about?
Well, breaking's a form of entertainment. So if I rip a hobby box and I don't know, cost $50 or something, and I pull nothing, I look at it as, well, at least I got my entertainment value out of it, and I'm not coming home empty-handed. Breaking is kind of similar, but going back to what we were saying about giving yourself a more affordable chance to pull something big, breaking does just that.
Yeah.
So, every once in a while, sure, but like any form of gambling, in moderation. But it's
Okay.
it's a necessary part of the hobby. It's not for me. I don't really have that gambling gene in me,
Yeah.
but I get it. It's a great way to pull something big. And I just hope that the breakers all break with integrity. That's all we could ask for, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's something to be said too, is the entertainment value for yourself. As long as the entertainment value is within the budget or the risk level that you're willing to take, then go for it. If that's what you enjoy, you're part of the hobby. And then, if somebody else enjoys a different aspect of it, then, that's what floats their boat.
Yeah. I think we were a little all over the place on this one, and that is okay
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
thoughts are free flowing. But I guess if you're watching on YouTube, let's ask for like some comments. What's a way to get someone new into the hobby, thinking both kids and adults, and what's a way to make sure that they stay in this hobby that we all love so much?
Yeah. And ways that you have seen that work in the past too,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure there's plenty of success stories, and how you might have gotten into it also. You might have had a card club that opened the door to something, and then all of a sudden when you had money, you had a little bit more money. Now all of a sudden you can dive deeper into the hobby, along with the great donations that people give to you, Craig, in your class. So All right. Well, I feel like we covered, even though we were a little bit all over, but we created a little bit of a web where you can make some connections between possible ideas and pumping that positivity within the sports card hobby.
That's it, straight up. I'll see you next week. Go Knicks, go Mets. Aaron Rodgers is basically a New York Jet at this point. Hey, a lot of people are saying it, not me. New York sports are back.
Yeah, and that's what we put in the Wolfpack group
Not me.
chat.
People are saying it.
Sources. Hey, if Adam Schefter can say sources say, we certainly can say, according to sources, New York sports are back.
Bing bong.
Bing bong. All right, bro.
Peace.